Okay. Hopefully, you guys had a nice little break and stretched your legs and all that kind of stuff. So this session, Jessica handed out a few handouts you're going to have to share, but we will make all of this available, including the full Predictor Implementation Self-Assessment after the conference, right, Jessica? Okay, so a lot of this stuff up front is going to be somewhat repetitive from the keynote this morning, but I'm going to have you doing some brainstorming together related to some of the questions that I asked earlier, in addition to working through the PISA, the Predictor Implementation Self-Assessment. So you have two handouts. One is the full list of predictors, and similar to that slide I showed this morning, just so you've got it there, those are the 23 predictors. It's the single-page handout, the table. And then you have a partial PISA. I've pulled out 3 predictors that you guys are going to work through this morning to really think about what you're doing in your transition programming work. So we're going to take a deeper dive into a few of the employment predictors. So I'm just going to reiterate the importance of interagency collaboration and how work experience requires partnerships. And then you guys are gonna spend some time evaluating your programs and practices specific to work experiences for students and youth with disabilities. We're gonna do some sharing out, so we've got microphones, we can come to your table, so be prepared to share as you talk with the people at your table. If you don't have a partner at your table, you can work with whoever's at your table to really think across your programs. So again, just as a reminder, interagency collaboration is a key component in the transition planning process and really helps students and is a predictor of positive post-school outcomes in the areas of employment, but not just employment, but in education, independent living, and community engagement as well. And so now you get to work. You're going to do a little turn and talk activity. Anybody recognize that type of phone? I would guess many of our youth and young adults don't even know what a rotary dial phone is. But I thought it was a cute little graphic. Okay, so I want you to spend a few minutes talking with your table, and then we'll share out who are you partnering with to provide work experiences to students and youth? What does each partner bring to the table? What shared outcomes have you identified? How do you include students and families as partners? And how do you include general education, school counselors, CTE as partners in the process? Are there other people that you're partnering with? If you're not partnering with anybody at this point, or very few people, who do you think, based on what you learned this morning, you could partner with when you go back to do your work? So go ahead, and I'll come around and kind of listen, and then I'll come around with a microphone, and you guys can share out. So just as a reminder, if you're using evidence-based practices and your programs align with the predictors of positive post-school outcomes, your students are more likely to have positive outcomes in the areas of education, employment, and independent living and community engagement. Which independent living and community engagement are two very different things. So thinking about all of those things related to that fragmented system that will help your students be engaged beyond just living independently within the community. So again, you guys have already talked a little bit about how you're developing family and youth partnerships and how you're engaging within the community. And hopefully you've got some good ideas from listening to the folks this morning who, as we have been talking and thinking through those questions. For today, for this breakout session, we are going to focus on the Career Awareness Predictor, the Interagency Collaboration Predictor, and the Paid Employment Work Experience Predictor. And so your PISA has those three predictors, not all of them because it's a very big document, as Jessica said to me earlier. We're going to focus on those three. And so I just want to give you the operational definition of career awareness. It's learning about opportunities, education, and skills needed in various occupational pathways to choose a career that matches one's strengths and interests. These are just a couple examples of the characteristics. Providing school-wide comprehensive and systematic opportunities to learn about various careers through job shadowing, internships, guest speakers, industry tours, career technical education, and career fairs. Identifying skills and qualifications required for occupations aligned with core content areas, embedding career awareness in the general curriculum, very important. I was speaking with this group earlier about the fact that many of our, a lot of times, because of all the academic requirements, especially for our students who spend the majority of their day in inclusive general education settings, they're not necessarily getting the transition skill development that some of our students with more complex support needs are getting. And so it's critical to think about how those students can be supported too in what their post-school goals are. And then making explicit connections between academic skills and how those skills are used in various careers throughout general education classes. So it's kind of what I said this morning, academic skills are transition skills. So really thinking about that. So that's an example of the characteristics that you'll be working through. And then interagency collaboration, I talked about this morning. So there's the operational definition there again, along with the characteristics that I described. So thinking through that. And then I went through this morning what paid employment and work experience looks like. And all three are employment-focused predictors. And then there's also the characteristics that I shared this morning. So let's talk about the PISA now. So this is what it looks like on the cover. This is, there's been various iterations of the PISA. We just finalized, we had some new predictors that we identified in 2021. And so we have updated the predictor to include operational definitions of travel skills, parent expectations, and a couple of other self-determination skills that we'd identified, like psychological empowerment and self-realization and things like that. So this is the newest version, and it has a scoring rubric. Somewhat subjective. You have that scoring rubric or scoring explanations in the handout. And what you're going to be doing is looking across those three predictors, determining which one you want to focus on for today's breakout session, and you're going to score each of the characteristics for that predictor. And you're going to think about degree of implementation. Again, somewhat subjective, but degree of implementation means, are you doing it? Are you sort of doing it? Is it emerging? Is it currently being implemented? And we've kind of based it off the percent of students that you're doing it with or not doing it with. So not currently being implemented, 0 to 25% of students experience that program characteristic. Intermittent implementation means 25 to 50% of students are experiencing that program characteristic. Emerging is 50 to 75% of students, and then currently being implemented, 75 to 100% of your students are experiencing a particular characteristic. The other piece that to me is really critically important is the evidence of implementation. Because you can say you're doing it, but if you don't have any kind of data, whether that be anecdotal data, products, assessment data, then you don't really know if you're doing it and how successful it is in doing it, right? And so no evidence is a 0. Weak evidence, there's just some examples there, would be a 1. So maybe you've got some written policies and procedures, maybe you've got a curriculum and materials that you're using, maybe you've got meeting agenda and notes where you've met collaboratively with your partners and talked through it. Moderate evidence, maybe things are being put into lesson plans. So maybe you are teaching self-determination, self-advocacy skills, and you've got lesson plans that focus specifically on those skills. You're doing work experience. Maybe you've got lesson plans that you're sharing with your pre-ETS counselor so that students are getting work experience and work skills while they're out in the community or at school. And then strong evidence means that you've got lots of data and products to show that you've been doing it. So I have an example here of a couple of the program characteristics for interagency collaboration. So the program characteristic of developing wide-reaching state interagency teams that include disability-related and non-disability-related agencies with a common interest in transition service delivery. This particular school rated that a 3, meaning that they have emerging evidence that that is happening. And the way that they know that that's happening is because they're implementing circles at the local level, which equals local interagency teams. They're collecting data on collaboration across community partners, and they've got student-level data collection on the impact of circles on students' self-determination. So they're doing pretty good with that characteristic. The next one is develop an agreed-upon vision and mission of transition services and programs. They gave themselves a 3, and they're implementing because they've got data. They're implementing circles, collecting data on collaboration, and again, student-level data collection. The third example is coordinate the development of policies and procedures for service delivery and sharing of resources by both school and community agencies. They gave themselves a 3, but they don't have any data to support it. So that's something that they would have to really think about and what kind of data they would collect. You are going to work through a predictor. You are going to think about these questions. So have you evaluated programs in collaboration with families, local education agencies, and or state education agencies based on the predictor? If so, what have you found? What steps could you take to facilitate the process with other school and community partners? Who could you partner with, or are you partnering with? Many of you have already answered that question. And so now you're going to take about the next 15 minutes to choose one predictor: career awareness, paid employment work experience, or interagency collaboration, and rate it based on the characteristics. So work to do that, and then we will come back together. I think, one of the things is that there's a lot of predictors and there's a lot of characteristics. And the expectation isn't that you would spend an entire, that you would go through every single predictor. I mean, it would be great, but that's a lot because you need to think about how you can make change quickly without changing your whole program to align with the predictors. So it's good. If you think that there's some things around self-determination, self-advocacy that you need to work on, you can look at that predictor and just work through each one as you're thinking about, what you need to do for your transition programming. This mic too, so I'm double mic'd. All right, nice job, y'all. So just as kind of a recap, the predictors provide evidence-based information that can inform what you do in high school. So just really thinking through what changes you might need to make, what you might need to develop, but really evaluating your process to really determine if the transition programming that you're providing to student is increasing the likelihood that they're going to have positive outcomes. And all of you have been talking a lot about that and thinking through it. And then it really provides shareholders or stakeholders with information about secondary transition program characteristics that have been linked to positive post-school outcomes, allowing you to think about and develop and expand your programs and evaluate what you're doing. It can also help IEP teams really designing transition services and activities and thinking through, if career awareness is something that you're missing, what can the IEP team as a group think about related to students' post-school goals and providing career awareness opportunities, for example. And so that's what the PISA does. I hope that it was super helpful for you guys. I will, as I said, this will go up with the slides along with the full PISA. We also have what we call our PISA action planning guide that I'll also add that kind of tells you, gives you some examples of the process that you could use as you're meeting with people to talk through, with your partners as you're meeting to talk through the different predictors and program characteristics. And so with that, I'm leaving you with the same questions that I left you with this morning. How do you determine roles and responsibilities? How do you involve families? How has your collaboration changed over time related to providing student work experiences? And then again, just as a reminder, not everything that is faced can be changed, but nothing can be changed until it is faced.